Hello, welcome back to the Fashion Nap. This week, I wanted to give you the full tea on the series so far. I want to reflect on the biggest teachings, the biggest gems on the guests so far, and also give you a bit of backstory of how the interviews came about, why I chose who I chose, and what I've learned so far about creating a series. I am recording back-to-back interviews over the next couple of weeks, and I'm so excited about the upcoming guests. So this week, we're going to do a little bit of a reset. I still can't believe how many people that I respect so much said yes to doing this series when it was just a concept, and how many are still giving me the time of day when it's still so new and I haven't got thousands of views. Every time someone sees the vision, it's such an amazing feeling, especially because the real tea is a lot of people try to put me off starting and delay this project and say, wait till you've got a bigger platform, wait till you've got more followers, wait till you can build a set. I am a firm believer in done is better than perfect, and I really feel like with this series, I know in my heart that the most important thing about every episode is the story. The conversations are always going to be the centerpiece. There's always going to be something to learn here. There's always going to be something that's going to make you feel inspired. And listen, whether it's from my sofa or the Louvre, it's always going to be fashion, facts, and fun. So let's go back to episode 1. Lauren Ezersky. I've never really spoken about this before, but the way this interview came about was a little bit rogue on my part. I've been thinking about this series for a long time, and Behind the Velvet Ropes was clearly a very big inspiration to me. I watch it all the time because she has all the episodes on her YouTube channel, by the way. I was watching one of my favourite episodes, her Vivienne Westwood interview, and I put a clip up on my story. And then Lauren reposted it, and then she posted it to her grid. And I was like, okay, while I have her, I feel like I should just shoot my shot about this interview because I've been thinking about it for a long time. I thought maybe she'd take a while to reply. I thought maybe it'll be like okay, maybe like in the future, let me know type thing. And she was like, yes, I'd love to. Can you do next Thursday? Which was like less than a week away. I didn't have any real solid plans for the series yet at that point. It was just in my head. So I stayed up till 2 a.m. and I made a deck and I invited like all the guests that I'd had on my wish list at that point, and they all said yes. All said yes. ALL, all. There is the sign if you ever needed one to just go for it. But let's talk about Lauren.
I mean, I don't know. When you buy Schiaparelli Girl, you're going to sleep in it.
Lauren's approach to reporting inspires me so much because she's so positive and you can see she enjoys her job so much. She's not out here trying to be the biggest fashion critic and kind of take people down and give her opinion and be like judge, jury, and executioner of what is fashionable and what is not fashionable. She just loves clothes. She loves designers. She loves creative people. She loves fashion and she just wants to be around it. And I feel exactly the same way. Not to say that there isn't space in the world for critics, and there are some people doing that role really amazingly, but I've just never been interested in that.
Every day there's somebody new doing something. And I just love fashion and I love the people that do it. And they're all really, I mean, I've never met a mean fashion designer. It's the PR people that are difficult because you have to go through them to get to the designer. That's the part. Most designers that I've met were really gracious and really nice and gave me great interviews multiple times. You know, Isaac Mizrahi, I've interviewed a gazillion times. Michael Kors, I've interviewed a million times. Even John Galliano, I've interviewed a couple of times back in the day. Alexander McQueen. Yeah, no, they love what they do and they're passionate about it and they don't mind talking about it. It's just the PR people you have to go through to get them.
This clip of her and Jeannie Becker is exactly how I feel my role in the fashion world is versus the kind of style of reporting that I'm talking about.
We're actually both of us waiting to do our fabulous interviews with John Galliano, our god, my god.
Well, I don't know how fabulous the interviews are going to be. Think he's going to be a good interview?
I think he's going to be awesome today, yeah, because you and I are here together. Yeah, we're going to pump him
Think
up.
he can handle us?
I think
he wants to handle us?
I'm just so interested in how people do their job, what their process is, why they do it, and just being able to meet so many talented people and see their wonderful creations. And what I loved about interviewing Lauren is she's exactly how you think she is. Even just the fact that she pulled up in a gold bed in a silk slip with full makeup on and a chihuahua and she was sick.
Well, I'm glamorous today because I put some makeup on just for you. I wasn't going to, but I have my chihuahua here. I don't know if you could see. She's keeping me
I can see. Her work ethic is something that you can take away from that episode as well, because she spoke some life into me. She was like, there's no laziness anymore. You just get up and do things. Because I was saying I could reschedule her episode because she was sick, and she was like, no way. If you're sick, you get on with it. So that was my interview with Lauren Ezersky. Also in that episode, it was so cool that it aligned with the Earth Day shoot that I did with Isabelle Landicho for Bricks magazine. A lot of the brand work that I do is just from home, so it was really cool to actually be on set again and take you around and show you how it works and show you Isabelle's amazing creative process, and the photographer Maggie as well. She's so talented. Me and Isabelle are really passionate about sustainable fashion and in really different ways, so it was really cool that we could sit down and do a little interview segment. We are like 6 looks deep into the shoot. I've grabbed Izzy to get some more amazing information about the sustainable fashion world. How long have you been working in sustainability?
I have been working in sustainability formally since 2017 and informally my whole life because she is from the Philippines. Okay. And we are a developing country and we also slay. And we make the most of what we have. That's what it's all about.
The next episode I recorded was Priya Ahluwalia and Anjelica Roselyn. This is a long episode, but I really felt strongly about putting these two conversations together. I have thought about uploading them separately since, just like, I don't know, so their respective fans can find them. But I wanted to put them together because when I left both conversations, I had the same feeling of pure, inspired energy. These two women are so successful at what they do. And my goal with that episode was for there to be this video that exists that people can stumble upon, specifically young Black women that want to work in this industry, to be able to stumble upon this video of these two wildly talented, wildly creative, successful businesswomen and creative businesswomen and hear their stories, because they give so much free game in those episodes as well on how to do it and what you should know and what you should focus on. And also what I like is that their styles and their approach to their work is completely different. Priya gives me these like alpha vibes. She's very curious. She's got a very creative mind. She talks a lot about asking questions and wanting to know everything about the things she's interested in. And also the education was really focused on in her upbringing and how that informs how she makes her business moves and how she made sure she learnt about finance and she knows every level of her business, maybe not to expert level, but to a level where she can give advice and direction.
I put a lot of effort and time into being a designer and at the same time also like learning all my other subjects. And actually I think having a well-rounded education has led to me being good at business and like being good in different situations. So it's been really helpful.
I was going to ask you that, but you just answered it. I was going to say, do you think it helps? But yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's so many, especially being a business owner, there's so many elements to owning a business that are beyond design. And, you know, it's so crazy because now when I think about it, my weeks, like the amount of time I actually get to design is much smaller than when I first started the brand, when I was doing everything myself. You have to do lots of meetings, you have to do pitching, you have to think about finances and do your cash flow, you have to meet with clients. There's so many different elements to it. And I think being quite studious has prepared me for that in some ways.
Which is amazing that you feel like you can then have a hand in all parts of your business, because a lot of brands when they start, they have like a business partner and one person is the creative brain and one person has to handle everything else.
Yeah, and I think it's really important, like as a business owner, to understand how all the different elements of your business work, even if you're not going to do it. It helps you to be able to help your team problem solve. It helps you to think of, you know, solutions or strategies in a more rounder and 360 way. I think like knowing how each element works also helps in case of emergency, if you need to muck in something that you don't normally do. But also at the same time, it helps you negotiate things better. You know, like if I didn't know how to pattern cut or sew a garment, or if I didn't know how to, you know, if I didn't have an interest in marketing, I might be outsourcing all of this and getting bumped.
I mean, if you don't respect that, what do you respect? But then on the other side, Anjelica, she is this force in the fashion illustration world. And I asked her, like, do you think your style's developed and changed over time? And she was like, honestly, no, because I know my style is good. And she just trusts her gut. So much of Anjelica's story is just trusting her own instincts and just knowing that what she is doing is the right thing to be doing, and kind of not getting outside validation, not listening to outside voices.
If I see a collection that I love, or I see like a bag I love or a shoe I love, I know exactly what I'm going to do. So I feel like my vision comes quite clearly through me. It really is that simple, actually. It's not a very complicated thing, which is why I think I love it so much. It's not convoluted. I don't have a lot of process or anything like that. Maybe I do, but it seems quite natural for me.
And you're so good at it.
I think I just do it. I appreciate I get so much support from you and like so many, of us in our community, but I've worked at it for a very long time and to get to where I'm at now. So I think I can say, yes, I am good at it.
I love hearing you give an answer like that, because people are so reluctant to like say they're good and cheer themselves on. But you're right, you've been doing this for a long time. You've achieved some amazing things that we're going to get into in our next question. That's why you should keep watching. And you are good, and you should be able to say that you're good. I think we should all be able to, say, yes, hi, I am good at what I do.
Absolutely, babe. And I think that we praise each other so much. I think, again, you and I, we know a lot of mutual people, a lot of amazing women in particular that are just bossing it. But at the same time, if you can't just step back and say, you know what, I did that, or like, I think I'm doing well, because at the end of the day, outside our communities, it's quite rough out there. So I think this is something I am learning as well. This is, you know what, Anjelica, you're doing okay, and just keep going. And Chani, you're doing okay, and you keep going.
Thank you.
What I'm saying. I say okay, I mean great. That's what I mean.
And I just think those two approaches together, forget it, unstoppable. If somebody was like, I don't know, at the start of their career and came across that video and got all of that advice on day one of their journey, it's a wrap. So yeah, that was a very passionate speech, but I feel very passionately about that episode. And if you haven't watched yet, I really urge you to go and watch both Priya and Anjelica's section. They are just two brilliant women in the fashion industry, and I'm so blessed to know both of them. One thing I also want to add about Priya is the way she called out tokenism in the industry in that episode was so eloquent.
Blackness is not one-dimensional, because we all have these brands, we all know each other, we all get on with each other, and we support each other's work. And our work is completely different. So there's no longer this need to be tokenized. So we are pushing that tokenization thing away. Like, there's no reason why three of us can't be chosen for the same activation. We're not designing the same stuff. And I think that is something that's, as a side, that's something that's really special. Blackness is multidimensional and our experiences are different. Even being a Nigerian designer, you have a different experience of being Nigerian. So like mine and Tolu's work is very different, but both equally as exciting. So I think that's something that's really nice that comes out of it.
Yeah. What she said. And one thing I really admire about her is she is such a clear and direct speaker. I took so many mental notes of how she conducted herself in that interview, how she paced her sentences, how she was able to think and communicate her idea in a way that I knew exactly what she meant. I really struggle with my speech. This voice that I'm speaking in now is not how I speak in my day-to-day life. When I'm in a natural setting, I speak 100 miles a minute. And it's funny because people that like I've met on TikTok and then met them maybe at an event, it's happening. They're always so shocked when they hear my natural rhythm and flow of my speech. And it's funny, but it's also a struggle that I have. Because in this job, and even just in life, you want to be understood and you want to be clear. And sometimes you see it happen a little bit when I get very comfortable in the conversation on these episodes. I really have to edit some stuff out because you just can't understand what I'm saying. It's just trying to grasp control of how the words are coming out of my mouth so I can get my message to you and to the person that I'm talking to clearly and effectively. But Priya is so good at it. She's such a good speaker, and I really, really respect that. And that's something that I look at in a lot of people. Which brings me on to my next guest, who is one of my favourite speakers ever, Marcellas Reynolds. He is one of the most captivating storytellers I've ever met. And I tell him in the episode, the three people that I could listen to read the phone book is Marcellas Reynolds, Pat Cleveland, and Dapper Dan. Those three people can tell a story and have you hooked on every single word. That interview I did with Marcellas was originally 2 hours and 40 minutes long. We were just non-stop. When you meet somebody else that's a super fan, in the way that you are, the conversation can just go and go and go, especially when you're both talkers. It was very hard for me to edit that episode down to the length it is now, because you may have noticed, even watching what I put out, everything Marcella says is a gem and everything Marcella says is interesting. He tells stories and they're long, but they're not boring. And you start to cut things out and you lose that essence of Marcellas and how he tells stories. You lose the journey that he's trying to take you on. So I really had to, edit and then give it a week, do another pass, and really try my best to make it kind of a digestible experience. But maybe one day I should release the full conversation. I put some bonus videos, or a bonus video from that interview on my Patreon, where he tells a story about Naomi Campbell. I just feel like Marcellas Reynolds' contributions to preserving the legacies of Black women in the entertainment industry, he is like an unsung hero. He does not get the flowers that I think he should get. And he gets a lot of flowers, but I feel like he should get so many more, especially when I listen to his story and you can hear it in the interview. The amount of personal sacrifice he has to make these incredible books that he puts out.
It took 7 years for me to sell it. I sat in rooms with publishers who wanted to meet me because I was celebrity stylist Marcellas Reynolds, or I was talking head Marcellas Reynolds. And they would ask me if I had a book idea. And I would say, Supreme Black Models. And they would tell me to my face, some of the biggest publishers in the world, white men, would say to me, a Black gay guy, that a book about Black women wouldn't sell. 3 publishers, at least in my face, passed on my book when they had asked me to come in and talk to them about writing a book. Mm-hmm. So it took 8 years for me to, it took 8 years for the book to come out, 7 years for me to find a literary agent that believed in me, and then to find a publisher, Abrams, to publish the first book. Also, I've done 3 books in 5 years, so I don't want people to think that every other year I write a book. Mm-hmm. They're not like that. They take an incredible toll on me to write the book, and they come at a lot of financial expense. I have to pay the licensing fees, and they're really expensive, and they come out of my advance, and the advance never covers the price of the licensing fees. So I have to pay the difference. So these books are a love letter to the world. They're a love letter to women. They're a love letter to Black women. I write them for little Black girls so that they can go into bookstores all over the world and they can look at the really expensive Tom Ford book and look at the super expensive Rihanna book, but then they can grab my books that are relatively inexpensive in comparison to books like them. And they can take a book home that's populated with women that look like them.
Nobody would make those kind of financial and personal sacrifices if they weren't really passionate and didn't really believe in the message they were putting out into the world. I honestly should start a Marcellas Reynolds fan club because I think I'm Marcellas Reynolds' biggest fan. Maybe when you watch the episode, you'll be a bigger fan of Marcellas than I am, but I don't think it's possible. Episode 4 was a fun one. David and Rado are both, aside from being both very talented and very intelligent people, they're both so naturally funny. I've never laughed so much in my life as interviewing Rado.
Usually when you have a really good Sunday morning after Saturday night, when you get lucky, you usually end up wearing a shirt of the guy, right? But now, guess what, guys? We're taking your underwear.
And it's nice when you can sit down and get some real gems about business, learn some things about the behind the scenes aspects of working in fashion, and it not be boring at all, and you can laugh and there's comedy and it's enjoyable. David really breaks down how he started his archive and makes it simple and accessible. You don't have to start with thousands and thousands and thousands of pounds and all these incredible museum quality pieces. You can start small and build your way up, and he really breaks that down.
Just had a mad couple of finds through COVID, which, like, I bought a Chanel bag for £70 on Depop.
Oh,
I think some young girl must have got it as a Christmas present and didn't know what she had, and it wasn't fake because I had it authenticated. And I got like 1,700 for it. So
wow.
that gave me like a nice bit of money to play with to build the archive at first. There was a couple of Chanel bags that happened around that time. And they were the catalyst for me to be able to have that expendable income, especially with like the furlough money that I was getting and stuff, wasn't going out. So yeah, it just kind of really ramped up my passion for fashion, you know? That sounds really cringe, doesn't it? I don't think I actually thought that I would actually do the business. It was always, the page was always there, and it started off as festival vintage fashion because my friends used to do festivals. So it was like, that's how it was kind of born, and that was probably like kind of 2017. And then I just kind of left it and just didn't do nothing with it. And I was like, actually, do you know what? The more and more I'm like looking into the other resellers and what they're doing, I was like, do you know what? I can do that. I can do it better, or I can do it in my own way with styling. Worked for quite a lot of publications and in e-commerce and like fast fashion, which is not really what I'm about, like ethically. And I don't know, just it's more pleasurable for me to do this now than it is to work for someone else. But it is very stressful, like to be able to be the buyer, the content creator, like everything. I need help. Any
So he's hiring, by the way, if you're watching this. I wanted to interview Rado because she's someone that I followed for a long time, and of course she's very well dressed. I love learning about transferable skills and seeing how she's taken her skills being a manager of DJs and used them to help her super creative friend and business partner start this incredible genderless underwear business. That story really interested me, and I was watching her from the. I've known her for a while, but I was watching her business from the sidelines on Instagram, and I was like, she is not playing. Like the visuals, like everything they've put out for Voyeur is top level. Like some of their campaigns could be in the cinema. And again, she was just so open in sharing how she did it. It was also interesting to hear about her journey in these industries as somebody who comes from Bulgaria, where there isn't really a fashion scene. And she's had to kind of be a bit scrappy and hustle. And I just found that also a very interesting aspect to her story.
Usually when you see a brand from Bulgaria, you think, ew. Or even sometimes when you meet, like I get that so many times when, from girls actually, when I'm, let's say in Miami or New York, they'll say, where are you from? And Bulgaria. Oh, isn't it dangerous there? And I was like, babe, everywhere is dangerous if you're stupid.
Which brings us to Connie Girl. This was a surreal moment of my life. Even when Connie followed me on TikTok, I was like, there's no way. This has to be a fan account. Like, this cannot be the actual Connie Girl, like, interacting with all my videos. That was, like, mad enough to me. But then the fact that she actually wanted to sit down with me and do this interview and then to be so complimentary of my work, like, okay, self-indulgent moment, but like, what the fuck? I was blown away. I've admired her as long as I've admired fashion. And her images are so iconic. So to be able to sit there and ask her all the questions that I wanted to ask her and hear her eloquently answer them all in so much depth. She's such an impactful person in the history of fashion, and to sit down with her and have her be so humble and so chill and so personable was just amazing and surreal. When she was answering the questions, I can see she thinks so much about what she's saying. She speaks so intentionally. You can see that she takes her role in the trans community so seriously.
It's ingrained in you that if you get to the door and it opens, leave it opened. Even if you have to stand there with your foot in the door, leave it open. The more I got in and the more I learned, the more I thought there would be possibilities for me. If I was able to speak to Tracy Africa as, a Black trans woman of color and get that sort of information of what's expected of me, how do I navigate? If I could have spoken with Terry Toy and, gotten a little bit of information of how to dodge the bullets, how to sort of take the arrows in the back and still keep on moving. And in this moment now, I think sort of the collecting of history and sort of creators like you that are invested in sort of making sure that history has a real foothold in reality. You know, that sort of patriarchal, misogynist sort of edict that the winner writes the history. That is, you are doing such important work tearing down that sort of format and sort of really enabling history to be spoken.
Honestly, the whole episode is a must listen. She's so wise and so smart. But of all the wise and smart things she said, there is one phrase that I've just stolen from her that I cannot stop saying, and it's this.
I don't turn anything down but my collar.
It cracked me up so much. Okay, don't tell anyone, but I think the interview with Nan Devitt Tremblay is my favourite one. Fashion television's Invisible Woman. Like, that headline alone, when I saw the articles on her Instagram account, I was hooked. She actually reached out to me because we've both interviewed Connie, we've both interviewed Marcellas, because Nan also has a podcast. And because she's the Invisible Woman, I was like, who is this? And I was going through her account, like, okay, these are a lot of like fashion TV interviews that I'd seen. And then it clicked when I read the articles. These interviews were all conducted by her. I'm extremely well versed in her work. I just didn't know who she was. So you can imagine, the curious part of my brain was like, okay, I need to interview this woman. And I was so happy that she wanted to do it too. And we just hit it off immediately. I am so like hanging on her every word, like more stories, more stories.
You want me to tell you the wildest thing I did with Andre? No. Of course, yeah. But I don't know what he was thinking or what we were thinking, but one time he summoned me to Charles de Gaulle Airport. He said, I'm getting off the plane and you need to film. I don't know how my boss authorized that, but we took a crew and we met his plane for arriving from St. Petersburg, and he had a full suite of Louis Vuitton luggage that he wanted us to film, and some kind of fur whole situation he was wearing, and he was with some princess, I can't remember her name, and they'd been renovating her castle or something in St. Petersburg. And I can't imagine we ever found any place to put that, but we filmed it. It's lost in the archives somewhere, but yeah, that's
I would love
the wildest
to see that
thing I did.
because I have an image of it in my head, and I feel like knowing, or not knowing, but you know, with Andre, I'm sure the image is exactly what I'm seeing in my head, because he has such a strong, recognizable look that you just know, okay, the fur tick, the Louis Vuitton luggage tick.
You knew.
And she has this charm about her because, of course, now, like after the facts and looking back, she does realize how important her work is. But because she wasn't a super like fashion fan, she's very aloof about it, and she can just tell things so candidly. And I'm like, wait, you did what? You got what interview? You spent the day with Stephen Meisel and got him to speak on camera. Like, this is big stuff. And I just love that she's just so like innocent about it all.
Do you think your, not lack of interest, but just kind of newness to the fashion made you better at your job? Because you weren't so intimidated by who all these people were?
For sure. Not to sound arrogant, but for one thing, I never gushed. I respected everybody, but I never gushed. The only gush I did was I gushed when I met Nina Simone. Well, who wouldn't? I was just like, oh, I'm so happy to meet you. But otherwise, you know, they were just human beings. And the fact that just fashion television, the program that I worked for, our whole approach was, I suppose, more documentary in some kind of way. You'd use that word nowadays. Because we didn't care, kind of collectively, we didn't really care about trends or styles, or we never, I never did a story about a hemline or even what was in, you know, but we were interested in the people and reflecting what was happening kind of sociologically, I guess. Yeah. And that probably, that distance probably made me less of a fan and more of just somebody who could be natural with people.
Yeah, because I feel like I would have just freaked out if I was in your position and got no work done. I'd be like, oh my God, Linda!
Nah, they're just humans, you know.
It's true. It's very true.
After the interview, I was like, we need to find a cafe, because we were chat. Even like in the lift out of the building, we were chatting. We were waiting to give the keys back to the studio owner. We were still talking, and I was like, we need to go and sit down. So we went to a cafe, and we were talking for hours. We were working on some more stuff together. So I would advise you to go and get familiar with that interview and get familiar with Nan and her documentary and all the wonderful clips on her account, because you're going to be seeing more of she and I in some capacity in the future. It's just really cool to speak to someone that in a way is a kind of mentor in this game, even though the game is so different. In some instances, I really admire the old way of reporting in the old style, so it's really incredible that I can have access to somebody like Nan who supports what I do and is happy to like give me these gems. So I'm just so grateful. But that interview, oh, even when I think about it, I get so happy because she is just an amazing woman. She is a wonder to behold and a joy to speak to and a joy to listen to. And I was so happy. Like, I filmed that interview on the Sunday and I uploaded it on the Monday because I was so like, I need to get this conversation out there to the people. She is in her 60s and she's decided to paint herself back into the picture of her own life. And it's just so admirable. And I'm so happy for her that she's decided to do this and really get her flowers. Her documentary as well can only be shown through in-person screenings due to legal reasons, which is actually very punk rock, I think. So definitely, whatever city you're in, mention it to wherever screenings happen in your area and try to get Nan down to show it, because that is one of the best fashion documentaries I've ever had the pleasure of seeing in my life. We might be working on something, so if you're in London, maybe you'll see it. And that brings us to the most recent episode, the episode where I interviewed Herbie Mensah. And again, what a pleasure. What I love about talking to Herbie is he is true to this, not new to this when it comes to the sustainable fashion world. Now we have all these words like upcycling and this and that, but that is just the way he knows to make clothes. He talks a lot about coming up in the club scene. He was a soul boy and it was all about being either a dresser or a dancer. And he said he was more of a dresser and you had to put your looks together. There was a club every night and it was very DIY.
I feel like I like to encourage people, rather than throw away clothes, work on something that you've had for ages that you feel like it's still got life in it. Doesn't matter if it's got holes in, put a patch on it. If it's got a slit in it, cut it to deconstruct it to make it look like, different,
Yeah.
Add something to it that can give it, extend its life and make it look like, fashionable even. A lot of clothing these days are very straight.
So that's just his natural way. He speaks so candidly about everything he's making being a one-off piece. And I'm like, do you know how cool that is? Some designers dream of being able to do that and they are forced to churn out collections after collections and, resort and spring and winter. And he's just like, I just come into my studio and do what I want. And I respect it so much. And then he just has all these other like bonus stories because he only started designing as in like selling his designs in his 60s. He had this whole other life. Before that, he was modelling, he's still modelling, and his children are also modelled. Imagine, he was modelling in the Les Incroyables show for John Galliano at John Galliano's graduate fashion show, like this monumental moment in fashion, and he was just there, like in the show. He was also in these early Vivienne Westwood shows. He went to Paris with Vivienne Westwood. He has this whole history with like two of probably the most influential designers, apart from, of course, Alexander McQueen, we have in the UK. And then just hearing how working with those designers informed his own design style, because that was his first entry into like the high fashion world, as opposed to the stuff he was already making just to wear for his night out. What designers to be introduced to. Just seeing like the shapes Vivienne Westwood and John Galliano create, and that to be the first thing that you get to go and experience like in person and be immersed in their world.
Do you feel like when you're working now, obviously you do all these amazing unique creations, do you feel like there's things that you learn from seeing those clothes like close up in your modeling days? Because the designers that you seem to be drawn to you are all ones that works very like in an unorthodox way.
Yeah, well, Vivienne's obviously been a big influence because she was very much into that DIY. It was a case of like, doesn't matter if the seams are showing, doesn't mind if the seams are crooked or whatever. If it's wearable, fashionable, and it's got that something about it, that you can create. I mean? It's like the trousers are twisted, the shirt is buttoned that way instead of straight down the middle, and that's basically what I've taken a lot from her, because what I create now is it doesn't have to be straight, it doesn't have to be, the seams are showing, it's great, it's deconstructed, it's like, it looks like it's been handmade. It's very much like if I can do it, you can do it sort of look, you know.
So now when you look at his work, you can see, okay, yeah, he talks about exposed seams and not everything being straight lines and being more sculptural and twisted. And that does come from those early inspirations. He also spills some tea on people he thinks may have copied him, you know. He was like, Margella, Comme des Garçons. I was like, oh my God, please let me keep that in the episode. And he's just such a positive He's just such a positive person. He was so happy and eager to sit down afterwards and show me some of his peers that he thinks I should interview. And he really is like a cheerleader for other people in his world. And that is something that I love to see. Thanks for joining me on this little retrospect. Over the next few weeks, we have magazine editors coming. We have stylists. We have more archivists. We have couturiers. Like, I'm getting everybody in for this next batch of interviews, and I'm so excited for you to see them. And yes, it's going to be how it always is. It's going to be a little bit ragtag. Sometimes we're going to be here. Sometimes we're going to be in studio. Sometimes we're going to be doing studio visits. Sometimes there's going to be 2 guests, sometimes there's going to be 1 guest, but they're always going to be fabulous. They're always going to be fashion facts and fun, and you are always going to enjoy them. I promise. I'm also cooking up some big plans for how we're going to document Fashion Week. And yes, it's going to be very nostalgic. So watch this space. Stick with me until September. We're going to have so much fun. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, and I will see you next week. Bye.